What is up, guys? I've done a lot of process videos on how I make my art, whether that's with paint, acrylic paint, oil paint. I've done a couple with graphite. I've talked about some of my sketching process, but I haven't talked a lot about the actual materials that I use. This is not sponsored, by the way, but if anybody does want to sponsor me, I'm here, I'm willing. Call me. I wanted to talk a little bit about my art supplies, what I like and what I would buy again, and even some of the things I probably wouldn't buy again, just to, save you the time. Because at least when I was starting out, like, I did not know what was necessarily good, and if there was stuff that was affordable while also being good, and whether or not you even needed the super high quality stuff, or if you could just work it out with some of the more affordable stuff. And I feel like it would have been so helpful to have somebody tell me all these things when I was first starting out versus figuring it out by myself. So that's what we're doing today. First up, we're going to talk about paints, but I'll also be talking about ink, about graphite, color pencils, all that. So let's get to it. Number one, especially when it comes to painting, is just preparing the canvas. And this is such a, kind of crucial part of my painting process, because it really starts here, especially with the way I paint, where it's sometimes a little bit more of graphic, and I don't really want to be fighting every single tooth on the canvas. We have gesso. So when it comes to acrylic, gesso is more so there so that the acrylic doesn't soak into the canvas immediately and you aren't wasting a ton of paint. That saves you in the long run. And when it comes to oil paint has the tendency to sort of degrade the canvas if there isn't a gesso layer between the canvas and the paint protecting it. And if you're somebody that likes working on a bit more smooth canvas the way I do, then gesso is also a great way of smoothing it out. So this is the gesso that I use. I bought it quite a while ago and it's still pretty filled. It's probably up to here, comes like all the way up there. This has worked great for me. It is definitely on the more affordable side. There are more expensive gessos out there. There are higher quality gessos out there, but this has worked great for me and I'll keep using it until it runs out, and after that we'll see. Next up is the actual acrylic paint. So when I first started out with acrylics, I definitely bought a lot of the cheaper stuff, which is Artist Lofts. And honestly, I still buy these. I don't care. I think they work great and they're at a great price point. And obviously there are some things that maybe a higher quality acrylic paint has, like better pigment, but this, it works great for me and I don't really see the need or feel the need to replace it. I have these in a couple of different colors. I use the brown a lot, especially when I'm making portraits, because it's just an easy starting point that I can adjust. And of course I have it in the primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. And the great thing about this yellow is that it's pretty opaque, even though it is a semi-opaque. Also, this is a great thing to look at if you're buying acrylic and you don't want paint that's transparent. There is a little square back here. If the square is empty, then it's transparent. If it's half empty, half filled, it's semi-opaque. And if you have a filled square, it's opaque, which means like you aren't going to see through that at all. And I definitely did not know that when I was first buying acrylic, and I have bought quite a few transparent paints in my day, which do serve its purpose and they are great to have, but it's definitely not something I wanted to have. So yeah, if you are going to buy acrylic paint, and you want to make sure that your paint isn't going to be see-through, check the back of the bottle. So you see something like this. And in the same realm of acrylic paint, but a little bit high quality, a little bit more expensive, but not a huge jump, is the Liquitex Basics acrylic line. Now, Liquitex has a lot of acrylic products, whether it's paint, whether it's mediums. I really like their basics line because they still have a lot of pigment. They have I believe it's the same kind of pigment that they use in their professional line, but as you can see, it's made with artist quality pigments. So these have a really amazing color. I only have a few of these. I have mainly the black, and the white is what I use the most. I go through the white a lot, especially for my portraits, which is why I recently ended up getting this bigger one. But yeah, I have these in the ivory black, the white, yellow, red, and blue. Just, again, I only really buy primary colors. I don't buy a lot of shades. I would rather mix out the different colors myself. So if you want to get acrylic paint that maybe is affordable while still being a pretty good quality, this works amazing. And there isn't a ton of difference in pigment between their basics line and their professional line. So I would definitely say this is worth it, hands down. I also really love the consistency of these paints. They're kind of thick, and I think it really does wonders for how long it lasts. If you're someone like me, I use the same batch of paint over the course of a couple of days, and when using acrylic, I find that it's a little bit easier for me to do that with a little bit thicker paint that I can keep somewhat watered down and not really worry about it just becoming straight up water. Now, this was not my finest moment, definitely not my best purchase. I bought these Craft Smart paints, which, pause, are great for its price. It's just not something I would ever use again for what I do. I think that was definitely on me though. I just did not read the fast drying part of these paints, so definitely on me. But I have used this quite a bit. I used this when I was making my mural, and I was mixing it in with the Artist Loft paints, so it wasn't too big of an issue. It did dry a little bit faster than I would have liked, but again, it says fast drying, that's on me. They do have a somewhat chalky feel afterwards, and I would much rather prefer the sort of smooth plasticky feel of Artist Loft paints. If you are going for affordable mainly, I would say skip the Craft Smart, just go to Artist Loft. Relatively, it's not too big of a price point difference, if I remember correctly. I also have Posca markers. I don't love these, I'll be honest with you guys. I will use them on occasion. I used them in one of my pet portraits that I made, that I posted a video about. And they are very convenient in the sense that, again, it's an acrylic paint marker. It's just very convenient. You don't need a brush. You can just on the go. While I do appreciate that, I think it's just in the actual technique of using it that I don't quite enjoy. When you're painting, but then you have to wait for the first layer to dry, because if you put the Posca paint on top of the Posca that's already fresh, it'll start to sort of like lift up in a way that I don't like. I know other people have had those issues as well, so it's really just that, but they are pretty convenient to have. I do have quite a few colors. They came like in an 8-pack or something, and again, they're just a little pricey for what I feel is worth it in a sense. Maybe it is worth it to other people who do enjoy them a little bit more than I do, but it's definitely not something I would buy again. On to oil paint. I bought some Winsor & Newton Artisan Water Mixable Oil Paint. So yeah, I have these, again, primary colors: white, yellow, red, blue, and I believe I have a black as well. Yeah, these work great. I love these. I've had no issues with them. Again, when you're using water mixable oil, it is a little bit different. The technique is going to be a little bit different, especially when you're doing like a watered down glaze. It's gonna feel a little bit different, but I really love these, and it's very simple. I only have to ever worry about using water, and when it comes to washing my brushes, I only use dish soap and some water. I do also have this Georgian water mixable oil paint. Somebody gave me this white tube, and it also works great. I haven't tried other colors from this brand, but the consistency is great. It's easy to work with, and it's pretty similar to the Winsor & Newton. So now on to ink. For the ink, I have a few different brands that I really enjoy and one that I do not really enjoy. And first up, we have Micron. You've probably heard of them. I love Micron. I think they're so convenient having so many different sizes. I think the ink is it's a very nice ink. It's very dark, and I've never had the issues like with it drying out on me. It's also great using it with watercolor, which I really love. This painting back here was made with microns and some watercolor. So yeah, I love these. I have these in quite a few different sizes. I believe from 005 to their 08. Microns are definitely a little bit more on the pricey side, but I do genuinely believe that it's worth it. Also, if you're like shopping at Michael's or something, you can just wait around until they have a coupon or some kind of sale. Michael's literally always has some kind of sale, so literally just wait until then if you can. Next up, my least favorite is Faber-Castell. Okay, let me start with the positives. They also have a really nice dark ink. And again, they also do come in different sizes like the microns. However, I had actually bought these first, and the issue was that they kept drying out on me, even though they were full of ink, which was definitely annoying, especially because ink isn't something I use super frequently. I'll maybe use it every other month, and really I did not want to spend every other month trying to revive these. Some of them do work. Some of them are just kind of not fully alive, and the ink isn't very dark and not much comes out. So they are a little bit frustrating to deal with. I still have them because there's still ink left, and I want to make sure that I use it all up. So next up, we have the Prismacolor. So these are the dual tips. One side, it's a very like soft nib, and then we have this side. So I actually don't use these quite often. They are nice to cover, you know, a pretty large space, and I really like how much ink flows out of it. My only complaint with these is that it's not a very solid black, and especially if I'm using it in combination with like the microns, you can really tell the difference in between the black of the micron and the black of the marker, which I don't really like. But I would definitely use this on its own. And it also just has a somewhat strong smell, which I'm not a big fan of. But again, that's just me with my sensitive nose. Now, my last and possibly my favorite ink is actually a little bit different. It is a dip pen. So I use the Winsor & Newton Black India ink in combination with a few different nibs. So I have this one, and this one. So these are really easy in just that you put it into the handle. It's a little groove, there you go. So you just slide it in and boom, pen. So instead of something like the Micron where you have to get a ton of different pens in a ton of different sizes, you can get one handle and just switch out the nibs to a different size. And same goes for ink. Instead of getting a whole new different pen with different color ink, you can just buy a different little bottle of a different color. I really loved using this kind of pen, this kind of nib specifically, where you can really just have a lot of variation in your line weight without having to switch to a new pen or having to go back in and make the line a little bit thicker or add some kind of shading. This is really nice because you just press down a little bit harder, more ink will come out, and as such, your line will be thicker. I just keep all the little nibs in here so I don't lose them. A little Altoids? Is that how you say it? A little container, very convenient. I also have these sort of fountain pens by Pilot, which are really fun and convenient because they also have that kind of nib where you push down, more ink comes out, the thicker your line will be. And these are really fun because you can really take it on the go compared to something like this where you would need to take the entire little thing with you. So this is really nice if you're out sketching and maybe you don't want to bring every single thing with you, but you still want to have that line weight, you still want to have that flow. And I have these in red, blue, and black. I also made that right there with this. If you have like one of those little brushes that you can fill up with water that you'll usually get with like a watercolor set, this plus the water brush is amazing for creating a sort of watercolor inspired painting, especially like if you're on the go and you don't want to carry a ton of supplies with you. Now, when it comes to color pencils, I am for the most part using Prismacolors. The Prismacolor Premier, these are really nice. They're very soft, they're very, I guess you could say waxy. I love the pigment Prismacolors have, but again, they are definitely on the pricier side. So unless they're like on a sale or have some kind of coupon, I'm probably not gonna buy anymore. There's also these Prismacolors. They're a little bit skinnier. I would say they have pretty much the same pigment. I think the only annoying thing about these is the way it comes to them sharpening it. And it's just like they will break kind of easily, which is the only annoying part. I haven't had to deal with that with the Premier though. So I'm guessing it's the difference between their quality and the two different kinds. But they both work great. When it comes to graphite, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I do have the different kinds of, what would you call it, like HB, 6B, all of that. However, most of the time I am just using a lead pencil. It's just what I'm used to. It's a bad habit that I cannot break. But in the cases where I do need to go a little bit dark or maybe a little bit lighter than a lead pencil can offer, I will be using one of these. I do have the nicer pencils, which are by Faber-Castell. And these are pretty great. I do like these. It's just, again, a habit I cannot break. And these were, simply put, just my first. They are the basic. But yeah, they work pretty great for, again, being a sort of basic, affordable version of pencils. I also do use charcoal, not as often as I would say I would use graphite or ink, but I definitely use it enough to have quite a bit of it. So I love using the General's charcoal. I have quite a few different stuff from them, and they all work great. No complaints, the quality is great, and it's probably been my favorite charcoal to use. I don't quite remember how much I did spend on them because I bought them quite a few years ago, and since I don't use them often, I still pretty much have quite a bit left. So it's not something that I would probably need to buy again, but if I ever need to, I definitely would. I also somewhat recently, got this Rembrandt charcoal, and this also works great. Great quality, no complaints. And of course, a must need when you're working with graphite, with charcoal, a blending stump. I got this in a pack of Prismacolors that came with the Prismacolor marker I showed you guys earlier, with some pencils and a few like colored pencils as well. This works great for blending, especially when you have like a very small area you need to blend. It does really help a lot. I also use a lot of just like Q-tips and a handy dandy finger. But yeah, blending stump is definitely very, very helpful. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my little deep dive into my most used art supplies. I do have a couple of stuff that I didn't mention, but it's not really stuff that I use quite often. At least not enough that I've shared it on this channel yet. So without further ado, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week with a new video. Bye!